So thank you all for coming this evening. This is Mr. Andy Graff, and he's a specialist on postal services information. So he's going to give us information about Westmoreland County's postal services in the past, and all post offices. And so thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
These are just examples of my collection.
Oh,
I'll pass it.
this is gonna be fun tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
As a genealogist, this is just a treasure trove.
Wow.
For me, but
Yeah, especially about the third page and fourth pages are examples from the organization I'm a member of called the Virginia Postal History Society. And those are examples of this catalog of early postmarks in the state of Virginia from colonial times up through 1865. And this is my guide for a lot of what I've collected. This is the organization that I found early when I started collecting, that I found out this organization existed. And I was in my 20s at the time, probably mid to late 20s, when I found this organization. And I remember the first meeting I went to, most of the people had hair the color of mine. And so they were very, very pleased. There was a friend of mine, we both joined about the same time. We were both in our late 20s, and we were there, and everybody else was like old enough to be our almost grandparents or parents. And so it's like they were really happy to see some young blood in the organization. And almost all those original members are deceased now, but they were a wealth of information and knowledge, and always very kind to us novices that were just starting to get. And they had some tremendous collections that I envied, and it's like, wow. Their collections, one person was collecting just Richmond Confederate postal stuff, and he had a fabulous collection. He won many prizes at exhibits. Another was collecting, trying to collect all the postmarks in Virginia.
Oh, wouldn't that be
Like
fun?
antebellum
Yeah.
postmarks, like that would be in this catalog. Another was collecting every town that they could find that had a Confederate postmark,
Wow.
which very specialized collecting because you only had 4 years to collect.
Sure.
Then it was no more.
Wow.
But I wasn't that. I was making very few dollars, and fortunately, in those days, back in the early '80s, stuff. Some of it was still very inexpensive. It was pretty expensive for me, but stuff that big time collectors wouldn't even look at. It was like I could go to the $1 box or the $5 box and look through there, and you could never. It was amazing what kind of bargains you could find that come across. But I was very fortunate. I grew up at near Tappahannock, and went to school there until I was 15, and then we moved up to my parents. My 3 siblings, we all moved to Charlottesville, or near Charlottesville. My dad was the district forester in Tappahannock, stationed in Tappahannock, and our state headquarters was in Charlottesville, so he got promoted up to state headquarters. So I did not want to leave Tappahannock, but I cast my vote for a no, but that didn't happen. But looking back on it, it was a great thing to have happened. Charlottesville was a very interesting place to grow up in. Looking back on it too now, it's like coming through Tappahannock, it's like a miniature Charlottesville, how it's grown up since we lived there. But I also have to give credit to 2 of my teachers from Tappahannock. My 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Little, instilled in me the love of reading, which I have to this day, and I thank her many times what she did for me. And my 7th grade teacher, Mrs. Sutton, was a fabulous Virginia history teacher, and certainly my love of history came from 7th grade, Miss Sutton, because she loved history and taught it like she was absolutely proud to be a Virginian, and there wasn't any greater state than Virginia. And so there was both of those teachers had a big effect on my life, though they might not have realized it at the time. I wasn't that good a student. I was definitely a C student. But I got first into collecting. I got into surveying first. I'm a land surveyor to this day. My company is Old Albemarle Surveying in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I was very fortunate to start under an old surveyor by the name of R.O. Snow. He was a Marine veteran from World War II, fought on Okinawa, and I learned how to do clerk's office research early in my surveying, which I'm still fascinated. Clerk's office research is so interesting. And I would borrow his truck to go to the clerk's office and to do research. And one day, using his truck to go to the clerk's office, on the front seat of a bench seat on his pickup truck was a American Legion magazine. And on the cover was American stamps from World War II. So I said, whoa, this is kind of cool. I love history, and World War II is always fascinating. So I remember going through, looking at all the article that was on there, and I said, well, you know, there's a stamp shop here in Charlottesville. I'll go in there and see if they got any of these old stamps like this. And I went in there, and she had some little packets of used stamps, and they had some of those that were on that magazine cover. But at the same time, she had in her counter, she had a bunch of old stamped envelopes. Some of them with no stamps, which I was going, no stamps? And I was like, how's that possible? And then she had some with old stamps. And then the first one I bought, I still have it today. It's my very favorite cover. I bought it for like $2.50. It's a Port Royal, Virginia, and it had a black border around it, which I had no idea what that was, and I had no idea it was addressed to a Miss Sally Tompkins, Richmond, Virginia. I didn't have any idea who she was, but I said, Port Royal, that was just right up the road from Tappahannock. I said, I want that one. So I bought that, I still have it, and it turned out the black border around it, and you'll see an example of one in there under the Hague. I have it pretty much alphabetical, except I start with Richmond Courthouse, and then Montrose, and then it's alphabetical. The last one of the Hague has a black border, and that signified you would receive that in the mail if you had lost a family member in mourning. And you don't see them very often, and that was something that happened back in the 19th century. I'm not sure they carried on to the 20th century, but you would see that once envelopes became available, you could buy those at a place that sold stationery, a mourning envelope. And so that Sally Tompkins had lost a family member, and someone was mailing it to her from Port Royal, and she had a connection to Port Royal, and it was a mourning, had a black border around it. So, and then I learned out later who Sally Tompkins was, and wow, what an incredible individual she was. Like, everyone should know something about Sally Tompkins. You talk about an amazing woman, way ahead of her time. You can find her, I'm sure, Wikipedia would tell you who she was, but she's an incredible person. But the one that I have highlighted in the Hague section, the last part, my collection that I've got here is antebellum through Confederate. And I have two examples in here that are not that, and that is one of them, the Hague mourning cover, because it's right at the end of the war. And it's sent to a family member here that has ties to Westmoreland County, the Davis family and the Beal family. And she lost a son, who's actually, I didn't realize till later, was a stepson. But she raised since that boy was born. And that's addressed to her from Norfolk, which was behind enemy lines during the Civil War. So probably someone could get it to her till the war ended. That's why I say 1865 or 1866 was probably when it was mailed. There's no year on it, so I couldn't tell. Mailed to her in Westmoreland County.
So that was pre-printed on those?
Yes, that black border was pre-printed on the envelope, so you could go to.
Are there any other designations in the collections that you came across of a color or some type of symbol?
I think that is the only one for that era that I have, but there's some examples. I think in my early Kinsale stuff is one with a stamp on it. It's a very small envelope, and I think it's addressed to a Miss Mary Ward, connections in Richmond County. A very small envelope like that. That's a plain envelope. A lot of times they were very ornate around the edges, and those are known as ladies' envelopes. Because they're very small, much smaller than the average envelope of that day.
That's interesting.
But a lot of times they're very ornate around the edges of it. And you know, on the back flap of the envelope, you'll see they're quite detailed and quite fancy, but they're usually very, very tiny envelopes. And they're just known as ladies' envelopes.
Well, it is an annoying fact of postcards today that they have to be a standard size. So back during your
There wasn't a standard size.
There was no standard size.
And you can look, I've got some examples here I can hand out to you. You can see a lot of the examples I have here before stamps. They're known as collectors, they're known as stampers. Pretty simple. They're examples of, there were no envelopes. Envelopes hadn't been invented yet. So people just took paper and addressed an envelope and then wrote the letter on the inside. Now this example, that letter has been cut out, and this is just called a wrapper. But you would fold it up and either wax seal it on the back. Later they got little wafers that you could get, usually red colored, and those you could seal the paper with it. You're welcome to look at these. Here's some examples. Just pass them around. Here's even one with a manuscript postmark, but you're welcome to open them up. This example is later. You think of today, you can still go to the post office and buy either postcards or envelopes that already have the stamp printed on there. Well, that actually started in the mid-1850s. And there are examples in the brochure, but here's one of what it was like. The stamp is already printed on the envelope. But the first postage stamp is still one of the most gorgeous stamps that ever was made. Great Britain. It's called the penny black. You can look that up. It's a beautiful postage stamp. And that came out in 1840. They had the same problem everywhere that there were post offices, is how expensive the mail stuff was back in those days. And England was that way, France, United States. You can look at some of the early stampless stuff and you see some of the prices up in the right corner. That's how much it's cost to send something. And, you know, some of my stuff that I have is 12.5 cents. This is back in the 1820s. That's a lot of money. Some of them are 25 cents and they're 34 cents. It's very expensive. And almost everything you'll see that it's sent collect. No one paid the postage. Almost no one paid postage. The person getting the letter had to pay the postage. And that was standard. That was the standard practice. So occasionally you'll see some in that era and they'll say paid. Those are unusual. They happen, but maybe like 10% of the time. And almost always those are business correspondence or legal correspondence.
Did they do the price based on distance or weight or?
It was based on the number of pages and how far it was going. And so personally I like the stampless era because unfortunately the stamped era, the envelopes came about. As a collector, most times the letters are not with the envelopes anymore. But a stampless, unless someone has cut the letter out, the letter is still there. So it's like, I always like that because I like the idea of, especially you had 3 categories of people using the mail back in those days in stampless era. That was legal documents being sent, business being sent between people, or family and friends writing each other. And the fun part about collecting for me was when I would go to stamp shows back in the 80s and 90s, back before the internet, the finding in dealer boxes this stuff and finding the old folded letters from the areas that I like to collect, and the letter would still be there, and you'll see some of the examples in the brochure there that they are from homes that I heard of, but I said, I bet that's a place that might still exist, and you'll see some examples in there. I tried to write on there who, if I know, have the letters there, that what name of the house or plantation that was where the letter was mailed from. And sometimes it also works that the person sending it writes the name of that place on the envelope or the folded letter that is going to that plantation or farmhouse. So those are always fascinating to find.
So your collection is all of Virginia?
It is now.
It is now, including Charlottesville and
I have a very large Charlottesville and Albemarle County
You
collection.
have anything from Ivy, Virginia?
I do. I have what was called had 3 or 4 names before Ivy.
St. Olive's School for Mountain Girls.
I have never heard of
That's
that.
in Ivy. That is in Ivy next
Okay.
to the church.
Okay. Before it was Ivy Depot, and then before that it was Cosby Store, Woodson's Depot, and then Hardin's Tavern. All those are names that before Ivy. So, yeah, I've got a large collection of Albemarle County and Charlottesville, but this is the area that I love, this area I grew up in. So, and I first started just trying to collect postmarks from the northern neck and the west side of the Rappahannock, Essex, Middlesex, Carolina, that sort of thing, Gloucester, Matthews, King and Queen and King William. That was like 10 or 12 counties I was collecting avidly. But the stuff was hard to find. I mean, the only place I would find it was dealers. I had to be in a larger city, and it might be a stamp dealer, and they'd have some there that I would go through a box and might luck into finding something, or they had stamp shows, and they would usually have, there would be dealers there that dealt in postal history, and going through dealers' boxes trying to find certain items. And the shows that would come to Virginia usually had, the dealer would make sure he had a box of Virginia stuff, because he's hoping to sell some of his stuff. So, but it was very hard to find any of this because these were all tiny towns, and there weren't that much material out there. So I first started collecting, just trying to find the different towns in the northern neck, and then it was like, okay, I've got to increase stuff going addressed into the northern neck. So you'll see some examples in there from out of the northern neck being addressed into the northern neck. So I did that, and then when eBay happened, all of a sudden you had material every day, and it's like by the thousands.
I was just gonna ask, where do you find
And
all
that's what it is. I rarely get a chance to go to a stamp shop, but eBay I can check every day.
Wow.
So that's helped me find more and more items. But there's still, because they're all small little rural towns, there's not like any vast material from any of these places. And I've been collecting for 40 plus years, and I have enough to fill one binder for Westmoreland County. And I even have stuff that I didn't put in the pamphlet there that are reconstruction, then up through the rest of the 19th century, and a few items in the early 20th century. Yes,
Do
ma'am.
you have anything from Stratford Post Office?
I do not.
Huh.
It was not a post office antebellum. The second page of my binder, my pamphlet, shows you all the early post offices in Westmoreland counties, and you can see it's only like a dozen or 15. It wasn't that many, and some of them didn't last, but a few years.
Now, like on this one, right, so, first of all, and excuse my ignorance, what does dateline mean?
That is the top, or usually a folded letter or a letter at the very top. Dateline will be what they put up here, usually with the date.
Oh, okay.
Like where it's coming from. Like this one's Frederick County Bank, June
Okay.
7th, 1830.
So I was wondering how you knew this. I was like, so this would be a folded letter?
Right.
Okay.
And that's a folded letter it's funny, envelopes, with postage stamps came out, then there's a need for envelopes. Because now you didn't have to do all this folding and get it just right to write your letter on the inside. Now you just write your letter on a piece of paper and then stick it in an envelope, so much simpler. So all of a sudden the need became that, hey, invented envelopes, because now it's much easier to write. You don't have to worry about how you have to seal it, because there's gum on the flap that you can just lick and it seals it. So you didn't have to worry about wafers or wax and with a sealing stamp. Yes,
Could you still send a letter that way now?
as far as I know, you could.
Even with the, like if you waxed it?
I think you
They
could.
can't get the ones we have now, so.
Well, you can, but they would be hand canceled, so there would in general be a little.
It'd be hard for us to go, like today,
Yeah, they
most
would
of the
go
councils are
machine.
machine councils, and that'd be too thick to handle.
It goes in a
But
separate
you could
file.
still go and ask them to hand stamp it, and they could do it that way. Then put it.
Yeah.
These on the roll post offices, and maybe even the big ones, they probably still have a canceling device that they can dig out and put their hand stamp on.
Well, at this point, at least in Richmond County, Warsaw, they cancel nothing, I believe. It all
All
goes,
goes
it's
to
delivered
Richmond.
straight to Richmond.
Oh, wow.
So is your group still intact?
It is.
And do you have?
They do. I haven't joined one yet. They Zoom meetings from time to time. But our membership is, well, like Gene and I, now we're the old fogies with the gray hair, and we're always looking for new members, new young members. So it's like someone's going to have to carry this on. But I think like a lot of stuff that it interests people my age,
Right.
but it's hard to get younger people to be interested
No.
because it's like this is old folky stuff, you know. And like my two daughters tell me, you know, nerds.
Young people don't send letters.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and very few people even send letters now, but you think about it, this is the main mode of communication was this way.
Right.
How valuable are some of these, like monetarily? Just
The
curious.
most valuable one that I have from Westmoreland County is a Montross one. That was, it's the last of the Montrosses I have in there. It's an orange colored envelope.
Beautiful.
It's got a patriotic Confederate design on it. And it is, I bought that fairly within the last few years at auction, at a international auction house. And I saw what it was and I was going like, boy, I really would like to have that one, but I don't know if I can afford it.
Yeah.
Because it had so many things going for it. It's a member of a kinfolk to Jeb Stewart, one of his, a family member that came from, part of his family had gone to Mississippi. It was a relative that came up to Mississippi, was on his staff. And I'll show it to you here. I'll show the rest of them.
To Jib's, to,
It's hard to read because it looks like a used pencil, but there it is,
Oh,
the
that's it,
orange
yep.
envelope with the flag.
Yep.
So that flag was already pre-printed on the envelope.
Oh,
Those are fairly scarce, I won't say extremely scarce, but all of those are called patriotic envelopes. They always go for high premium in price at auction house, and a lot of times if there's a more common stuff, they'll group it in a group of covers. This one was a standalone because it was an unusual design, not that many of them, from a small town, and plus it had a connection to Jeb Stewart.
right.
And so it is hard to read the original that I have here. You can read it, but the Montross manuscript postmark shows up real well.
wow.
But his fascinating part about the Confederate Army is that soldiers were allowed to send their correspondence with the recipient paying for it.
Right.
They're called due covers, and somewhere on there it's written due 10 on there.
Oh, no.
So 10 cents is what it cost. And it would have been 5 cents, but because it was going over 500 miles, it was double, it was 10 cents, going all the way to Mississippi. Soldiers had that privilege. What I told you about earlier about the letters, you could send it and the recipient had to pay the postage. That ended in the 1850s when our postage stamps became general use. Then everyone had to use postage stamps. Or there's a Montross in there that has a paid 3 hand stamp on there that same thing, you had to prepay the postage or buy a postage stamp. You couldn't send it collectively.
One of those envelopes said free on it, could you send?
Yes,
things
a big
Good catch.
yes, a big benefit of being the postmaster is that you had free privilege.
Oh.
You could send all your correspondence from not only from your post office, but if you're traveling, you could send your correspondence, and you just had to write, your name up there and where you,
Wow.
and you could send free. So it was a big deal. And if you also look in the third, fourth, and fifth pages, well, some of the towns that I have that I had showed from our catalog here, it lists all the postmasters. And you look at some of the towns, there's a lot of postmasters they went through. But sometimes you run across one that might be a postmaster for 25 years, but then you'll see, gosh, they had a different postmaster like 5 times, and it's like 7 years. It's like, what's going on? Nobody stayed in the office very long. Or it might have been politics back then some that got you the job. But when you see free, that's what basically Congress people, members of Congress could send free, and postmasters could send free. So that was very lucrative to be able to send your correspondence free.
Is that still true today?
Yep.
And the first woman is in 1966. Hannah Newton.
That would have been 1866.
Oh, 1860. Oh, wow. Good for Hannah.
And you see some examples of maybe like a store or a tavern that maybe the husband got to be the postmaster in a little community, and then he might die, and the next thing you know, you see the wife's now the postmaster. Even back in the antebellum days.
Okay.
Didn't happen a whole lot, but it does happen.
Wow.
And even though I collect, this whole book is basically 17th and 18th and 19th century. There is one 20th century one in there. I found it on eBay. It's still a really cool cover. It's under the Oak Grove. It's the last cover in there from Oak Grove. It's from 1946. And I happened to see this on eBay. It's very unusual to see a manuscript postmark in the 20th century because everybody had canceling devices, especially after World War II. I've never seen one, a manuscript postmark. It usually, they lasted from after the Civil War, before the Civil War, up through the Civil War, the rest of the 19th century and into the early 20th century. And then all of a sudden, everybody had a canceling device. But in 1946, you can see the story there. You can see the front of the envelope, and then look, the stamp looks, it's actually in purple. So it's, you can tell it's not from that era. There it is right there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a purple stamp,
Oh.
and there's a manuscript postmark on it. So
Uh-huh.
the cool part about it, caught my eye first because it was a manuscript postmark, but it was what the person put in their description. Turn the page and you'll see the reason of the interest of the on the back of the envelope is on the next back of it.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what the postmaster wrote on the envelope.
Oh, wow.
Wow. What is the color?
The killer is, the post office has got a little device they were not supposed to, at one time, not supposed to use their canceling device to cancel the stamp. A killer was usually a circle or a square of some figure that would cancel the stamp so your postmark would be clear, wouldn't be.
Oh.
In fact, there's an example in there of Montrose, 1860, I think, that has a grid or a killer that's used to cancel the stamp, and the postmark's like on the left side of the stamp, and the killer is on the right side. I'm not sure exactly the reasoning behind it, because most of them you'll see that the canceling device, the postmark cancels the stamp.
Sure.
But that's one of the rules that they came out with right before the Civil War, so you see that happen a lot, and then all of a sudden it disappears, and it comes back later.
Is the Washington one, is that a descendant of Washington, the Oak Grove? Washington.
One thing else you'll find, you'll see some names in here quite a bit. Lawrence Washington being one of the most prominent name from this area. I have his correspondence somehow ended up being, someone got it, and I bought, there's probably 6 or 8, 10 examples in my binder here addressed to Lawrence Washington. I don't think I have any written by him, but somewhere his correspondence was sold, and now it's scattered all over the world probably. So sometimes I find it on eBay, but a lot of this I found in dealer stock in box. So it's like, it's a connection to Westmoreland County.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's coming into the county. I don't have anything from him, but I have stuff addressed to him in Westmoreland County. So I've bought some of those items. And same thing, the B.O. Davis family. I have quite a number of those. They have a connection to Westmoreland, the general. In fact, there's a manuscript Hague in there that's from his sister, who is raising Robert Beale, that I have a lot of his, Robert Beale Davis, the Reverend Joseph Davis married a Beale sister, and she died right after childbirth of Robert, and then the Reverend marries her sister Anne, not long after that. So she basically raises Robert from a child, which basically the mom only lived like maybe a month or two after the birth. So she raised Robert as her own, and then married the Reverend, and then they had multiple kids too. So I didn't realize at first that wasn't her son, but it was her sister's son. But I have a lot of that B.O. Davis correspondence, and the one from Hagen there is from, she's writing who's going to be her future husband. But that's the father of Robert. She's writing him as they're not married yet. It talks about a little bit about raising Robert and how he looks like he's a gifted child even then, the way she described it. So that was pretty cool. I found that one on eBay. That's one of those when I saw it and I knew the family connection. I said, man, I've got to get that one. And somebody bid me hard on that one, but I wanted it.
When you're on eBay, you are looking for verified sellers. Do you only have certain sellers
No.
that you
I'm whoever has material that would fit me. I don't really look
But
at
how do you know the authenticity?
You've collected enough, you can tell. I can
Okay.
tell fakes
Oh, okay.
have you ever seen one?
many times.
Really?
Many times.
On eBay?
Yes. And some people are good enough about saying it is a fake.
Oh,
And some
okay.
people collect fakes.
A replica, they actually.
It's not even a replica, someone's tried to make a fake.
Oh, they
An
sell it
experienced
as a
person can
fake.
typically tell that something's not a fit.
Huh.
Wouldn't that be an interesting collection?
It is.
Of purposely created
Mm.
things?
When I became a member of the Virginia Postal History Society, I was a draftsman at the time, and I was enlisted to do illustrations in this catalog of the circle councils. And one of the concerns was that I was making them too good,
Right.
because who's gonna stop someone seeing your council to be able to
Yeah.
replicate that and then make a stamp and put it on stuff and hey, look, here it is, looks authentic, cause here it is.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that they were concerned that, okay, you might be doing too good of work because someone, an unscrupulous person could then take that and make a phony council from that. But there's a lot more to it than just having a council. I mean, the time period's gotta work, those councils only, you can tell from this catalog, they only had those councils for a few years, so if you've got something on there with a stamp that couldn't fit the council, it's like, well, that's an obvious fake. Another eBay purchase, that's my Revolutionary War one. I don't have the letter, but, and it's not postally used, it looks like it was hand carried to Robert Carter. Nominee Hall, which is like, I saw the address, I said, wow, I'd really like to have that one. I said,
Absolutely.
I probably can't afford this one, but hardly anybody bid on it.
Really?
So I got that really cheap.
Oh my gosh.
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
the transatlantic mail? How do you know which ship? Like, it doesn't really say.
And sometimes they don't say,
Okay.
but, you can't always, sometimes they're good enough to write the ship on the outside,
Yeah.
but sometimes they do not. And if there's a letter with it,
They'll figure it out that way.
you can tell that it's
Okay.
addressed like Liverpool,
Okay.
Edinburgh, so
Okay.
it's like you kind of know.
Okay.
See if I can find that one too.
Out of your collection, what percentage do you have the letters with the envelope?
With the envelopes, probably no more than about 15%.
Wow.
Did you
'Cause-
say 1 in 50?
1 in 15 maybe.
Oh, 1 in
Or
15.
might even be 1 in 50. Most of the times the letters are separated from the envelope. It's really nice when the letter is still there. Same thing with the stampless, the folded letters, hopefully the letters still there, but a lot of the ones I have in the collection, the letters are gone. And there's some examples here, I think, into maybe Montrose. I meant that I put him in here, but a well-known law professor at UVA was at Davis. And the UVA, I was telling my wife, UVA sold a bunch of that stuff, cut the letters out and sold the wrappers. And so I've bought several wrappers from towns. And it was very good that the professor would write on the wrapper, not on the letter, but on the wrapper, he would write down who it was from the date.
Right.
So you get to see who wrote the letter and the date of it, but you don't get the letter, which is better than just a wrapper with nothing. 'Cause
So we should all start writing letters now to provide collecting material for the next generation.
Hey,
You don't have your letters from when you were a teenager?
Only from dead people.
Do you have them digitized anywhere? So, oh my goodness, you have to do that.
so, the one you asked about, the transatlantic.
Yeah.
So if you look on here, it's hand carried from Glasgow, Scotland
Yep.
to New York per ship Fanny. So down in the bottom left corner, it says Fanny via New York.
Oh, okay.
And so it's addressed to William Forbes and Company, Merchants, Nominee, Westmoreland County, Virginia.
Yeah.
And when I first bought it, it said on there that it had a faint straight line New York postmark, and I'm going, where?
Yep.
Where is that? But if you look right above William, you'll see the number 4.
Above William.
Oh,
You'll see a 4.
I brought glasses.
I
Here,
do.
you can see it right there. There's the 4. So in the envelope, there's a very faint postmark going kind of diagonally across from where it says, looks like Miss, but that's Misters.
I gotta get my glasses.
And that's the postmark. I wasn't buying it for the postmark. I was buying it for who it was addressed to.
Sure.
And what I find fascinating, still find fascinating, I've got 3 examples in here to Nominee Hall, Nominee, and then on the next page after that, another one to Nominee. No post office there at Nominee. That was just wasn't a post office there.
So how did
No
they get
post-
the letters?
That's a good question. Okay, because like the very first one to Robert Carter,
Yep.
it's Nominee Hall, and I guess in that time frame, everybody knew where Nominee Hall was. It's like everybody would know.
Gotcha.
So I'm guessing the same thing on the other two. Nominee was a prominent place in Westmoreland County, even though it may not have been a post office.
So
I
the
have no
letter would
knowledge of it
come
ever being a
where?
post
Like,
office.
where would the letter go to?
I found from one of the examples in this collection that, I believe it's one going into Montrose. It's hard to tell exactly how the postal system worked.
Yep.
And it's not like today, the mail got delivered every day. It didn't happen that way.
Yep.
But one of the letters says that someone had, back in those days, it was a very litigious society. People got sued all the time for debt, because you would give a note for a debt, and you had a certain date to pay it by.
Pay it.
Well, if you didn't, or someone brought suit against you to collect that. So that, a lot of legal stuff, that's what it involved. And this was someone who had sent a letter to a resident near Montrose that they had filed suit against him for his note. And he said, I received yours on the 7th, and it's like it was the 7th of May, but because I didn't receive it till then, it came that day, and I didn't get it till after that day, I couldn't give you a response because the mail carrier had already left. I'm writing now on the 9th to send you, said, look, I'll take care of this, don't worry about this. Something to that effect, so it's like, okay, sounds to me like the mail was coming every 2 days, or every 3 days, however you want to look at it. It's coming came on the 7th, he was coming again on the 9th, so his mail was going to go outbound on the 9th. So that's how it worked, and also, there was no mail delivery. You went to the post office to get your mail.
Huh. So, okay, so you went there or wherever.
So,
Somebody would tell you, oh, you have a letter.
or you'd send a family member or a slave, someone
Gotcha.
would go to the post office to collect your
Yep.
mail.
Okay.
And sometimes it's gotten very valuable now, at least what I see on eBay, is anything that's postally used, on the outside of the folded letter or an envelope, it says by Jimmy, by Bill.
Oh.
And
isn't that
and
interesting?
everyone thinks that's a slave that someone's, that's the person taking. So it's like, you find that stuff on eBay, and
Very
usually the
valuable.
person selling it will say on there, slave carried.
Got it.
And so it's like,
Very
big
valuable.
premiums for that
Yep.
stuff.
Wow.
And anything that lists slaves named by name. And I've got a few of those that are usually they're legal matters, settling estates,
Yep.
and there'll be names of slaves in there.
Wow.
And so that's I know from my clerk's office work, I see people quite often in the clerk's office, and Albemarle, until recently, had all their deed books, will books, all were right in the clerk's office you could go to. I worked in those all the time. I could get started on that, but now we don't have books anymore, so those are no longer accessible. Everything's computerized if it works. So I would see people in there doing genealogy works,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's all the time. And I worked in the Albemarle clerk's office for 40 plus years, so I was always in there trying to help people. I could see, I didn't recognize, so I figured, okay, there's somebody new in here. Sometimes they look kind of lost, so I try to help people and point them in the right direction, where to find stuff, and sometimes help them with reading deeds and wills.
Now, in our counties, only have digitized?
Some counties. Albemarle County had books all the way back from when they were formed in 1744. They're no longer accessible
I
to
feel
the
so
public.
old.
Yeah, so we had a county that was one of the few counties in the state that had, this is off topic here, but we had books that went all the way back to when the county was formed, deed books, will books, and now they're all gone. And everything is on computer now. So it's like when your computer system doesn't work, or
Which
whoever
was it?
scanned the copy
Yeah.
didn't do a good job,
You can't
then
read
you can't
it
read
or
it.
whatever.
And I'm a surveyor, and we've got plats in there that are not legible. How are we supposed to be able to do our job? You got a plat you can't read?
Are you allowed, like, do they have them in storage? Like, you
They're
could
supposed to
go
be in
and-
storage, and I
know?
guess, it would take some doing to be able to
To
get
go
them out of
get
storage,
those,
to
yeah.
get access.
Wow.
So, but it's a new thing, everything, they want everything digitized, no paper, you can just look at it online. It's a great thing, but I know for a fact that Louisa County and Johnny County had their index system hacked. They were not accessible for like 6 weeks. go to the clerk's office, but you couldn't use it.
We do still have ours in Westmoreland, back to the 1600s. but-
Excellent, excellent. So it's like some counties get it.
Right.
Augusta County has got a vast trove of information. They're saving theirs. They got all
But
their.
they do have them digitized as
I
well.
think that you're supposed to have them all digitized, and that's fantastic. Fantastic to do it, but you should keep your books. That's my
Sure, of
opinion.
course.
You should keep your books.
You
Of
have to
course.
keep them. But prior to digitization, certainly you had, you know, you would hear when something burnt down. Like here, we saw the post office burnt down,
Right.
but you know, the courthouse burnt with all the records.
Right.
But
We have a county, adjoining county, Buckingham County, lost all their records
Yeah.
in 1969, had a fire after the Civil War, burned all their records. So, a lot of counties lost their records during the Civil War, but Albemarle was very fortunate, they had all their records all the way back to colonial times, and you can see why a lot of people coming to do family history
Yeah.
would come to Albemarle or Augusta County.
This is while James studied English. That's my great-great-grandfather.
Is it? He was a surveyor
Yeah.
and a postmaster, looks like too. Very cool, very cool. That's a cool letter too, because he's being asked to come survey.
So when did they start delivering mail?
You know, the big cities, even in antebellum times, had a way to hand deliver. You could pay, like Philadelphia, Boston, New York, Charleston, South Carolina, they had like a penny post. If someone, you'd have to usually see the address, the number, street, written on the envelope, and it would say like penny post, and some of them, like the bigger cities, they had little stamps, they put on little penny post stamps they could put on the envelope and just say, hey, they were, when they came to the post office, someone would take them to deliver them for a penny.
Oh.
But in rural areas, that's not happening, unless maybe you're good buddies to the postmaster or postmistress, they might, you know, next door neighbor, when I'm going home, I'll drop that off for them. That probably happened.
Wow. Who knew it was this interesting?
And nobody felt
It's
safe.
very cool. Very cool. Well, I ask about digitization because it's obviously not just fire, it's water, it's
Yeah, that's
elements,
true.
it's
Yeah.
bugs.
And it's also,
You know?
hacking,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah.
because right now Albemarle County has their GIS system been hacked, so it's like, can't access their GIS records.
Like even to be able to scan and put them on Ancestry, for example. So I'm thinking more about like the African American history part of it, right? Which
Yes.
the records, they don't have huge amounts of records. So to be able to scan some of these things, I think would be such a useful thing for genealogists and families trying to trace back their.
It's hard enough for white people, it's incredibly hard for black
Yeah,
people to
sure.
be able to do genealogy work.
So any little thing, like envelopes and all of that, you know? Yeah. Interesting,
And I should also say, white people who couldn't read or write.
right?
If you look at enough
That's
old
true.
deeds, there's many deeds are signed with a X,
X.
white or black. There's a lot of deeds in the
Yeah.
clerk's office that are signed with an X.
have you ever seen anything by a black person?
Not in this,
That-
not
that
in
you
this
could-
area.
that- Or
I'm sure they
even on
exist.
eBay would have been identified?
Yeah, I'm sure they would be incredibly expensive if they were identified, if they were on eBay.
Probably in
Your best bet is to
collections.
be able to find something that's, the best part about collecting is making a find.
Yeah.
And that someone doesn't realize what they're selling.
Right.
And so, and I'm fortunate to have had that many times, find something that other people that are selling it didn't realize what they had.
Because you knew.
So that's the same thing with like antique and going to an antique store and
Right.
finding something, it's the same kind of thing.
Have you ever gone to any of the, national postal conventions and?
I've gone to national postal, or stamp shows, or international ones, I've been to a couple of those, they're usually in the DC area, and they usually will last a week, and those are, you talk about nerds, I mean, that place is, I mean, it's like there, you'd be amazed, and what's really cool is they always have a kids section, usually tables with all kind of stamps that are like free for kids. And a lot of kids come, parents will bring their kids, and they're sitting at a table and they're going through all these stamps, it's like fantastic, you know, trying to get that of interest at a young age. But you'll, and what's cool, I like this old stuff, but you have people that collect stuff that's being done today
Oh, yeah.
that they find fascinating. So you find all kind of people collecting stuff. First day covers is you always see a lot of dealers that are selling that, and people just all over those counters trying to buy first day covers. cause some of that stuff is absolutely gorgeous, some of the envelopes that people have made. I personally like the stampers there, cause you have a much better chance of getting the letter.
Yeah.
That's- And one other thing I wanna mention about Westmoreland County, most of the counties in this area and the Tappahannock side of the river, having a circle device, what we know as a postmarking device, those are very scarce. Westmoreland County has 4 different towns that had a circle canceling device in the antebellum period. Unheard of. I'm getting ready to do Middlesex Sunday. Everything's manuscript, no circle devices.
Interesting.
And like Essex County, Tappahannock had one for a long time. That's the only town that I know of had a circle counseling device. Most counties are lucky to have one, just one. And Westmoreland's got 4 different towns that had a canceling device, and Montrose had 3 different kind of circle devices before the Civil War. It was like unreal in a very short period because they didn't become a post office till 1852.
Was
It
that
Westmoreland
something
Courthouse.
expensive, like they had to purchase? Is that why not many added?
What
or-
I understand is that if your post office did enough business, you were supplied one.
Oh, okay.
But most rural, they didn't want enough. I'm sure, I doubt seriously Montrose could afford, they weren't given one.
They weren't
But a
given one.
postmaster could always purchase one because there were companies who made them.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So it was very interesting about Montrose right before the Civil War. For like 1853 or so, all of a sudden, the first one was purchased, and then you can just turn the pages. All of a sudden, there's a nice medium-sized one. Then there's a great big one called a balloon counselor, much bigger. Then they go to a real small one. So it's like they had 3 different kinds before the Civil
Wow.
War started. It's like having just one is amazing, but to have 3 in a short period of time. Then Hague has one, Oak Grove has one, and let's see, Kinsale. And
Wow.
Kinsale, the one that I have in there, that's the only one that I know of that's ever existed.
Wow.
That's
The only
interesting, because
example.
those are the 4 major, except for Oak Grove is now Colonial Beach, but that's the 4 major, post offices to this day.
But Oak Grove is not anywhere near
Westmoreland.
Colonial Beach. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is, it's
mean,
not far.
But I
it's
mean,
only about
typically,
5.
your
Back
Colonial
in the
Beach,
day, it would have been,
right,
but I mean, Colonial Beach has now absorbed Oak Grove, that's
Right.
what I'm saying.
right, but they were geographically, they weren't
Right.
like next door, like a mile away, it's
Right.
further away than that.
Yeah.
So it's like, there were 2 separate communities at one time.
Right,
But it's just unusual to see a rural county to have 4 towns before the Civil War have a counseling device.
interesting.
I've never seen any rural county have that many in this area of the state.
Would
Like
that
Lancaster.
be because there were so many plantations?
I'm guessing that probably the postmasters were wealthy enough to say, hey, I'm getting a counseling device. You know, it's like, that's really cool to have. It makes just, almost like a status symbol.
Uniquely, did they have some type of script that made it identifiable?
The Kinsale is the oldest one, and it's different than, it's the only one I've ever seen in the state of Virginia like that. And I purchased that at auction probably 15 years ago. It came up, and it's is this only Kinsale not listed in his guide in the front because it's different than all the rest, any other one. So it's like, that postmaster, now I would think of any town probably in Westmoreland County, Kinsale being a port town, could have had quite a bit of business, and probably the postmaster may have run a store or a tavern there and said, hey, I can afford, get me a canceling device here. And we're
So was it a,
big time.
was it a prestigious job to be a postmaster, or was it a job where they made,
It was,
a good wage?
it probably was someone who kept a store or a tavern where you had a clientele, or you were, those in a courthouse town would also be very lucrative. Could be, because a store, a tavern,
Right.
and a courthouse town, you got a clientele coming regularly to court versus a rural community like. But Kinsale, being a port town, travelers
Yeah.
coming in, and stuff that they, people coming in maybe from Maryland coming in and they want to mail something. So it's just unusual that they could have purchased one that would have been more of a standard design. Theirs is different,
Got
and
it,
the only one I've ever seen like that.
yeah.
And there's other places in the state of Virginia that have unique canceling postmarks.
This one you talk about.
Yes. It's in blue also, which is also very unusual. Color.
Yeah.
Almost everything's black. they had a blue one. So they had two things, they had a unique postmark and a color. Unfortunately, Kinsale's not in there, I don't have it in there.
Oh, you don't have postmasters in here?
It's in this book, but I didn't copy for that.
Because it's telling you what it is.
I noticed going to Oak Grove, the stamp in 1857, I'm going to, oh, okay, I think I answered one question, to, Mayor King George. That stamp is 3 cents. Then July 9th, December 15th, 1861, that stamp is 5 cents.
Right.
But then at the same time, in May 13th, 1946, that stamp is 3 cents.
Again.
So this is the only time I've seen stamps good.
So it's very interesting, there was a big outcry about postage, how much it costs. People having to pay, the recipient having to pay all this money to get their letters. There was a big hue and cry around Europe, United States, how much money everyone's having to pay for postage, kind of like it is today. And a brilliant family and a man, I think his name was Roland Hill in England, lobbied heavily, said we could do better with receipts in England instead of having to spend all this money for people mailing stuff. And because if we opened it up where the masses could use it, everyone could send a letter instead of having to pay 15 cents back then. 1 cent. Everyone could mail a letter for 1 cent, and somehow, long struggle, he got it approved. And that's the first postage stamp, the penny black English stamp, beautiful stamp. And he got that approved, and all of a sudden, once that, like a domino falling, once that happened, then other countries started, the hue and cry even got bigger, said, look what England's doing, why can't we do something like that? So it was very expensive in the United States in the 1840s to mail anything. Even going from like Montrose to Kinsale, 6 cents.
Wow.
So it's like, that's a lot of money back then. Who had 6 cents? And it's like, to be able to, most people. So it's like, and the recipient had to pay that 6 cents. So the hue and cry started in this country. So the United States finally got around to reorganizing their postage, dropped it down to a universal rate in 1845. They went to under 500 miles, 5 cents. Still the recipient paid, there was no postage. From like, something would have cost like the day before would have been like maybe 25 cents. Now it's 5 cents. And if you went over 500 miles, I think it was 10 cents. So they kept that rate, and our country introduced postage stamps in the late 1840s. Basically to the big cities, they tried it. Some success there, but they're still 5 and 10 cents, was still pretty expensive. And most people still wanted to send their letters collect, so the recipient had they had to pay that 5 or 10 cents. They didn't and let the person get it, pay that cost.
Wow.
In 1851, they came out with our postage stamp that you'll see almost all the examples in there. Also, I could still consider the best U.S. stamp. George Washington's profile, 3 cent stamp, and in 1851 you could prepay for 3 cents, or you could mail it collect for 5 cents. So all of a sudden 3 cents, well, most people said, I can afford 3 cents. And so that it became much more in use. And then in, I think, 1855, they said, no more of this collect, everything's got to be prepaid, so everything was 3 cents. And that's how it was for the examples. Well, the seven states seceded to start with. And so now you had a separate country down there who said they were a separate country, and you had the rest of the United States. So those two governments got together and said, okay, you can mail stuff from the north into our 7 states, and we'll honor that. U.S. postage, even though we say we're a new country, your postage is good in our country, and your postage is good from our country to you. And they said, that'll end on June 1st of 1861. Well, then the war starts between them. In April, the war basically starts, and 4 more states secede. So now you have, but that agreement was still in place. So the war starts, and still U.S. postage is good in the South, and the South can still use U.S. postage to use. It was still good, even though the war had started. And it wasn't until June 1st that the Confederate Post Office officially started, and U.S. postage were no longer valid. And the same thing in the North. You couldn't send stuff to the South. So, but the Confederate Post Office opened up. They said, okay, 5 cents for our letters. Under 500 miles, 5 cents. You go over 500 miles, 10 cents. That's why that Montrose with the fancy flag on there, Confederate, it was a due
Was
10
10
cents because
cents,
it's
yeah.
going over 500 miles from
Wow.
Mississippi. So the Confederate Post Office actually got to operate in the black. Whereas the Federal Post Office, even when the war started, they were already in the red. They continued to be in the red like they are today. So, but then the U.S. saved 3 cents all through the war, and then all the way up into the middle of the 20th century, they're still 3 cent stamps. They were still using 3 cent
Yeah,
stamps.
wow.
So like for 100 years, it was still 3 cents. And local use, you could do a 1 cent, even back in the time period I have right here. You could do a local use, like mailing it in Montrose for someone to pick up 1 cent. But that was much more common in bigger cities and towns where someone could just, they're called drop letters. You just dropped it in the post office. They charged you 1 cent for someone to come and get it.
Oh, wow.
Do you have any copies of the Confederate stamp? Like, did they do one?
Yeah, there's examples in there. I've got probably half a dozen Confederates in there, which is, you talk about scarce.
And recognize?
Northern Neck stuff is extremely scarce. Trying to find anything Confederate in Northern Neck is very rare. And that's why the one I have in there, I've got, I think, 2 examples that are outside of the Northern Neck coming into the Northern Neck. I've got one from Mobile, Alabama coming into Kinsale. And I try to do those in color so you can see the color of the stamp.
Yeah, I know you have a question. Is this standard for?
I don't think it's on the envelope, but it's on my index card up down below. So you can differentiate, no, that's, instead of the United States, that's the Confederate States. I think there's about 5 or 6 examples of Confederate in the Northern Neck. They're hard to come by. I mean, it's anything in the Northern Neck is hard enough to start with, but trying to find a Confederate one is even harder.
So when did the terminology change from recipient pay to COD?
So, I think it was 1855 that the U.S. Post Office said no more postage due, basically, for the recipient pay. Everyone has to prepay their postage. And what's fascinating too is that, just like in England, when the penny black came out, they came out in sheets. You had to cut them or tear them to get them. Where in the stamps that I showed from the U.S. and on the envelopes, the early ones, they're called number 11 because they were the 11th postage stamp. They were in sheets. You had to tear them or cut them. But when you get 1857, they took that same stamp and perforated it, so now you can eat much easier to tear. It's the same design, but now it has perforations around it. So if you look at those, you can kind of see where it's at the perforations. So they realized that customers demanding, hey, this cutting it or tearing is, sometimes I'll lose a stamp because I've torn it right through the other one, so I can't use it now. So it's like, if you had perforations, it'd be much easier to tear them. So that goes way back to and now seeing the perforations on the stamp is pretty unusual now because most of them you don't have to lick them anymore. You can just peel them off and stick them on.
So that's when people started buying sheets of stamps?
Yes, you probably buy sheets. And I've often wondered too that you lived in a little town. It wouldn't surprise me at all if people ran an account with the postmaster.
Oh, sure. I was
So
just
that-
wondering if you couldn't afford
Yeah,
to pay.
the
for
postmaster would
letter.
basically spot you. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe at the end of the month you had to settle up.
Sure, sure.
And probably the same thing for the goods in the store.
Yeah.
Because there's also pointed out to you, it's a, let's see which one. It's a Westmoreland courthouse, so it's before Montrose is a town yet. It's called Westmoreland Courthouse. This is 1837. It looks like it has 2 Westmoreland postmarks, different, on the folded letter. And July 12th, 1837. It's a legal letter, but there's a paid 6 1/4 cents which is very unusual because the postal regulations for local usage, and this was going from Westmoreland Courthouse to Richmond County, it was some kind of legal document, to the clerk of the circuit court of law and chancery for Richmond County. So it wasn't traveling very far. Should have been a 6-cent rate. But I found this recently, when I bought that cover, or that folded letter, the person I bought it from included this little tidbit. You've probably heard of pieces of 8, Spanish pieces of 8. And if you look at some of the denominations of some of the postage on there, you'll see like 12.5 cents, 18 3/4 cents. Well, who has 3/4 of a cent or half a cent?
Right.
But back in those days, that was common. And what this person sent me with that 6.5 cent rate, he said, Act of April 9th, 1816, created the rate of 6 cents for letters traveling 30 miles or less. However, until 1845, various postmasters took it upon themselves to charge a rate of 6 1/4 cents. This was done in response to the severe shortage of specie, which was mainly Spanish silver dollars of 8 reals. There was also a shortage of Mexican half reals and British 3-pence coins. Both of these coins had an exchange rate of 6 1/4 cents. The Spanish half real was commonly known in the southern states as the picayune. This common practice of chopping pieces of 8 into smaller pieces for making change introduced the term bit into the American language.
Oh, wow.
For instance, a piece of 8 was 8 reals, half would be 4 reals, or 4 bits, or 50 cents, and so on. The 8 1/4 rate was also applied to ship letters of the Republic of Texas and by private Eastern Express mail companies. The use of this rate slowly disappeared during the 1840s. The rate was primarily used in the South and considered scarce, with examples difficult to obtain. So I don't know if this is true or not, but it sounds good to me. And a very interesting story. I've always heard of pieces of 8.
Yep.
And I've always heard people taking a coin and breaking it up into pieces, and that's how we got that terminology. But that's the reason for those crazy numbers on that.
Yeah.
On that post, 12.5 cents or 18 3/4 cents, or sometimes you'll see 37 cents. You thought, how did it come up to 37? Oh, that's 18 3/4, or might be 37.5. That's how they come up with that. So it's like, or 25 cents is 12.5 cents double.
That's interesting.
The clerk of circuit court of Hopkins City.
And I've often wondered about a lot of the legal stuff. I've got a lot of legal stuff in my collection, not just in this area, but around the state. And I've worked in the clerk's offices enough around the state to see, especially in chancery files, you'll see correspondence, and sometimes you're old enough, you'll see stuff back in the stampless era. And I've often wondered if someone hasn't 5-finger discounted this out of clerk's offices. Because I see quite a bit of stuff addressed to a circuit court, and I've got a lot in my collection. I'm talking, a couple score probably, but it's, you see them, and it's like I said, it's legal stuff, it's business stuff, and it's family stuff, basically what you see. And a lot of legal stuff, it's always addressed to a court. And a lot of times, it's been cut, so there's no letter in there, but I'd say at least half the time, the whole document's there.
You're saying, for instance, like a court filing or
Yes,
some
like
documentation.
usually there's a court case, and a lot of times, like that one, that's out of state, that's going to Hopkins, Kentucky.
It's
So-
hard enough already to use the court system without taking into account that people have misappropriated documents or evidence or,
I've often wondered that, got no proof, but
right.
I've seen those old documents and said, wow, you could certainly pilfer something if you wanted to.
To verify that, you would have to go back to that courthouse and look up where that document should be,
Right.
and then you would.
But with my knowledge of some courthouses, it's like, stuff gets thrown out. Stuff gets going into garbage. We don't have space for it anymore. We get rid of it. No one uses this stuff.
This one's very
Discard.
interesting. I want to know more about this. 'cause in essence, this is Woodlawn Town here in Westmoreland County,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
In fact, I was just talking to somebody about Woodlawn.
That history of Westmoreland County is very good about, I was looking up quite a few of the places that I had names of
This is no
homes.
one though, it's a personal home now, that the whole farm has been kind of, and I've had some, former slave families coming back wanting to know where their family was and where this farm was, and I just found it. So it's like jumped off the page at me, I'm like, how in the heck do you have a letter from a Woodlawn?
How efficient was delivery service?
What's that?
How efficient was the delivery service?
From correspondence that I've read, people were complaining about the post office. It goes way back. They complained a lot about it in the Confederacy. They got a lot of complaints about
There's
stuff
no
not getting delivered.
excuse now why we can't get a letter. I'm still getting letters back from things I sent out in December. I'm getting it returned now in June. That they swore they couldn't send it.
I just got one back that was 2 months ago. Came back to me at my office. But I've mailed like 2 months later. I get it back. I'm unable to deliver.
Yeah,
But my client's address is what they gave me, and then they said, that's right, that's my address. But
well, I've
never made
had
it there.
people send things to me and it would go back to them saying I had no receptacle available and my mailbox is right at the end of the driveway, so, yeah, I'm not sure what to do.
So they were complaining back then too. But can you imagine being a letter carrier back then in those days, probably on horseback, all kind of weather? And then you had to worry about robbers, thieves, waylaying you on the way.
This
Bad
was,
weather happening, all of a sudden, it's very nice today, we can kind of tell what the weather's gonna be like. You can look on your phone, what's the weather today, and it shows you when the thunderstorm's supposed to come. But it's like, all of a sudden you're traveling on a nice day, and next thing you know, you're in a down deluge. And a creek's swollen, you gotta get across it.
now this one says it was reused, so they reused the envelope, the letter?
That's another court one going back and forth, and they just put another postmark on it, reused it. That's, reused stuff in Stampers there is pretty unusual.
Did you see that movie about the women that were delivering the mail in World War II?
The black ladies over in England, yeah,
That was a great movie.
that was a good movie. It's like, when you see all those sacks of mail that hadn't been delivered, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and they identified them all and delivered them.
That was pretty amazing. So they can be efficient when they want to.
You get the right people.
When you have the right people,
Get
it's
the right
up and
people,
running.
that's right, that's right. And have good leadership.
So are you still collecting? Are you still actively? Okay.
Do you have what do they call it, a piece that you want above all others?
Right. The golden chalice
Yeah.
of letters.
What is your, whatever that term is?
I still look back at the first one I bought, that Port Royal cover.
wow.
Being a morning cover and going to an extremely famous person that I thought I knew a lot about Virginia history that I'd never heard.
Who is she? What did she do?
Sally Tompkins, from Middlesex County. She was so far ahead of her time. Never married, but had lots of offers, but turned them all down. And she ran a hospital in Richmond during the Civil War that was probably the greatest hospital in the United States at that time. She had a success rate where most hospitals were lucky if they had a 50% survival rate once you went in. Hers was like well up to the 80s, nearly 90% of her patients all lived.
Wow.
And whatever she was doing, she was way ahead of her time. And
She owned a hospital.
she didn't. Her family was like old Virginia family. They
Gotcha.
had connections.
Gotcha.
And a family friend, I think, lent a large house to her, and she turned it into a hospital.
Wow.
And it's like she was unreal, and she had great staff. And she wasn't a doctor, but her doctors were really good.
Yep.
Really good, and I think she probably was way ahead of her time with sanitation and feeding and just whatever what was. She did it better than everybody else,
Wow.
and she did it so good that in the Confederacy, it was against the law for a hospital to be run by a woman. Had to be a man. And she had such a success rate that the president of the Confederacy recognized her genius, and in his genius, made her a captain in the Confederate Army. The first commissioned woman in the United States history, or Confederate history.
No
First woman
kidding.
ever hold a commission.
So that is the golden chalice letter.
Wow, that's pretty
Wow.
incredible.
Did she go to school? Did she go to school in England or?
No, she would have gone to school here in Virginia.
Really?
Wow.
So she was just way ahead of her time, way ahead of her time. And just like that, the idea that's in an era where male chauvinism was rampant, and to someone, the highest official in the Confederacy, to recognize her genius and say, okay, this regulation might be okay for the average person, but I'm making an exception on this person because she is so good. I can still have her run the hospital. I just have to make her an Army officer.
Wow.
So he gave her commission as captain in the Confederate Army.
Wow.
So that all the bureaucrats couldn't say anything. She's got a commission. She can carry on.
Interesting.
So
So,
did she have political ties?
you know, like I said, she was from her family, I think her parents were dead by the Civil War, so she had family connections that she was from Middlesex County, and they owned a plantation there that, I guess after her parents died, they may have lost, and she lived in Port Royal with some family, and then had connections in Richmond, and I think while her mother was still living, they lived in Richmond, and then she just stayed there.
Wow.
So she was well known in her day. She was very well known. In fact, most people that were probably from Richmond and longtime residents would know exactly who she was and could probably tell you right where her hospital was at. I think it's pretty much it's gone now. Been taken down. That old home that was a large home. But it's a wonderful story. And I didn't know anything about that when I bought it. But I look at it now and say, ooh,
Yeah.
it'd be take a lot to pry that one out.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So it's Tompkins, T-O-M-P-K-I-N-S.
T-O-M. I'm not sure there's a P. Might be T-O-M-K-I-N-S. I think that's how it's spelled. But a funny thing, I think I read that her old home in Middlesex County at one time was owned by John and Yoko Lennon.
Oh, yeah. Down Pennsylvania.
So
Interesting.
I have others that are great favorites too. An early Bowling Green cover I have. Got it, one of my early covers also. A good friend of mine that we joined the VPHS, Gene Lightfoot, and he had that cover and I traded him a cover for it. Because Bowling Green was close to Tappahannock also, I really wanted it. And it's a slave document. And it had a bunch of slaves mentioned because I think he was writing some family members maybe in Kentucky. And he was, the person writing was the clerk of the court. And he was writing, his last name was Pendleton. He was writing someone in a family member of this estate, and it has a list of names of slaves.
Wow.
But when I bought it, when I got traded for it back in the 80s, it was extremely difficult to read then. And it's really hard to read. But you can see it's like maybe a dozen names are listed because they were trying to divide
That's
the
so
estate.
valuable. That's so valuable.
And because also heirs move away, so it's
Yep.
like when you're trying to contact or you find one that may be living in another state, you're writing to them and saying, okay, we've got this and trying to settle this estate. Because the clerk of the court was one of the most powerful people in the county
Yeah.
back in those days, maybe today now too.
So would this have been when,
That was in the 1840s.
in 1840?
Mm-hmm.
And this is because someone died and then
Right.
the will says that X number of slaves go here and here and here.
I
Okay.
can't remember the exact, but that was pretty cool when I saw that. I liked the Bowling Green,
Wow, yeah.
but it was like, God, this is cool stuff. I mean,
That's history. That's like epic.
mhm. And I've also got some from King George Courthouse. Can't remember the person's last name. It was very unique, but very short, only a few letters long. He was writing a family member, and I've got 2 or 3 letters, stampless letters from like 1820s. A family member went to Alabama, and he was talking about the slaves that were coming from here, going down there, starting a plantation down there, which was 1825 in Alabama. That's early. And how, the ones that are being sent there to run the farm or the plantations down there, because land was very cheap. That was like almost like the western frontier.
that they moved the Indians out and Trail Tears?
Probably,
Probably.
yep.
They moved a
Probably.
lot of the Choctaw and Cherokees out.
So,
down
that stuff is
way.
always fascinating.
Yeah,
Um,
cause there were families from here that did some of the same thing.
Just like what you're seeing in the pamphlet there, a lot of this is correspondence that, like the Lawrence, Washington. The very last cover that I have in there has a Tappahannock, Charlottesville connection with Westmoreland County. And it's a son writing his dad, and if you look at it, that's a very cool design. When people came out with envelopes that said how a border around it for black, made a morning cover. Well, people figure these things out. Hey, I can do something with an envelope. Well, look at that one, it's the last page. It's an all-over ad design for someone. The idea is to show, put a design on my envelope. It's like you're doing a
Like an advertisement,
advertising
yeah.
for your business. Everywhere it goes, someone can see it. So it's like that happened that's in the 1850s, 1860 era. So just like the transatlantic into Westmoreland, you've got a lot of different uses of most counties that I collected all like this don't have all this stuff in it. I have very few Revolutionary War stuff like that one.
Yeah, and when you have it's
So.
pretty cool.
So when did the letter give way to the postcard?
That's after the Civil War, but not too far after, probably in the 1870s or 80s, so you might know better.
1869 was the
69,
first
yeah.
postcard in Germany, but by 1870, it had traveled around, including to the United States.
The only problem I have with postcards is that when they're mailed, everybody can see what you wrote.
Well, that was a complaint when they invented it. Like, oh, I don't want the service.
Right,
Give me my
right,
postcards and
right.
stuff. But they found that the price, either the 1 penny or even then later the halfpenny, that just nobody cared.
Yeah, and then with the picture postcards, so it's like, hey, I'm traveling, here's where I'm at, so it's like, it really can take off.
Right.
But then too, if you look at not everybody could read it, so.
This is
Right,
true. Good
right.
point.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
very good
But if you're well enough off to be able to travel to places and send postcards, you're probably
Send it
good
to
enough.
someone.
Probably
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
people that
but can
can read.
right.
But the handlers getting it to
The
that
hammers,
person,
yeah.
may not.
And I have a very fancy postmark from Montrose from the 1880s. It's a real fancy oval design. I didn't include it because I wanted to stop mine at the, antebellum days and up to the Civil War. But like I said, all this stuff is scarce to find. So over the years, I've said, okay, it's not really the time frame I collect, but it's pretty cool. I'll go ahead and buy that one too because the price is very cheap. But and the ad envelope on that last page, that becomes those kind of stuff is those are hard to come by.
Sure.
But when you get after Reconstruction to the 1870s and 80s, those are prevalent a whole lot. People are attorneys are putting their little corner card up on their envelope, or businesses has their stuff that they're advertising their business on.
Yeah.
So they're very common to see those,
Nice.
even in the small counties.
How are you
People do that.
countering the oxidation of the inks or the pencil or
I have archaeological pages that help preserve it. But some archaeologists have told me too that archivists have told me that the paper, depending on how old it is, it just deteriorates. Nothing you can really do. It's going to deteriorate.
Yeah.
And one of the arguments about doing away with deed books also is that I don't want people touching that. That's 200 years old. Every time someone touches that page, they're damaging it.
Right, because
So-
oil for me.
It's all in your hands. So I've heard that argument. That's the reason to do away with books also. But they countered that by now
Putting them in
the
plastic.
books, they have them in all in plastic, so you don't touch the actual page. All the pages are in plastic, wrapped in plastic, which was a great way to go to solve that problem. But
Do you plan on donating?
that is a possibility. That'll be discussed with my family. A lot of people sell their collections, but I'm thinking seriously about the counties in the northern neck and the eastern side or the western side. If historical societies are interested, I might donate.
Oh, wow.
Maybe, but again, my wife and my children.
Sure.
I mean, there's some.
The Postal Museum.
Where in
In DC.
I would not do that. No, I just feel like it would be kind of that scene at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark when they found the Ark. Yeah, they didn't see them going down there and some nasty film and stuff stuck in some box. I'm not interested in that. But a local county, yes, the people that live here that run that family ties, that appeals to me.
Yeah. Well, they would take care of it.
Well,
It
then
would be
that number
precious
of
to
people
them.
that would just open it up and
Right.
think like I just did a minute ago, I'm like, oh, that's my great.
But I have to hope that people that run the historical societies are good people that will take care of it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Now, when you receive these, one-page envelope and letter intact, and you read those, the history that's in those letters, like I know there's one, I think it's one that you passed around, it was from a grandmother to her grandson, and it's like 2 or 3 pages. But when you read that, does that match up with the history that you've been taught from that period? Or is there something unique in that letter that was never seen?
That's,
in history books?
I don't know the exact example of that, but you also have to be careful. I've bought stuff on eBay, envelope and letter, and I get it like almost within 2 minutes. Letter doesn't belong with the envelope.
Yeah.
I get that, and also I've bought stuff that it's in the right correspondence, just doesn't go with that envelope. Like someone had them out looking,
So it's
just
a
I just
different
stick them back in
Yeah.
different envelopes. They don't.
Mhm.
The names are right, but the date on the postmark is like 6 months different than the date of the letter.
But the contents of that letter,
Usually it's
it's still period related, right? So you can match up
Yes.
some activity that the
Yes.
grandmother's telling the grandson
Mhm.
that may have been of historical significance.
It could, there's a letter in there, I was talking about it earlier from Hague, that I had to bid pretty good to get that from somebody else on eBay, and it's from Ann Beal writing her, what's gonna be was her brother-in-law,
Mhm.
because her sister had just died and she's raising their son,
Right.
and now she's gonna marry him, and in a year or two later, they're gonna be married. She's writing in there and talking about her brother Robert. He's back from Pennsylvania, he's getting ready to go to UVA. Well, that's the General Robert Turberville Lee Beal. That's who she's writing about,
Right,
her
right.
brother.
Right.
Because I was just like, wow, that was a nice find right there.
Mhm.
So that's, and the fact that it's a folded letter,
Yeah, so you know that goes together.
And someone asked me earlier about stuff that I really cherish. I've got a Brewington, Virginia, 1858, and Brewington's a tiny little town in King and Queen County. It has a most touching letter in it. It is an owner of property, a husband and wife, writing to a man in Richmond who, they're both slave owners. The ones in Brewington own the wife. The man in Richmond owns the husband of the slave. The couple is married, but the husband's in Richmond and the wife is in King and Queen. And he is writing, husband and wife are writing the man in Richmond, please send George, I think was his name, down. We'll give him every attention. Our Sally, whatever, is distraught because she doesn't get to see him very much. We would love if you could just, we'll take all great care of him, and if you just can spare him to come down and be. So it's like, ooh. And it's only like 2 paragraphs, a little short letter, but it's like very touching, very touching.
But that wasn't always unusual, was it? I think Carter did the same thing.
With family separated, yeah.
When the family separated, then he did everything he could to reunite that family in one of his plantations.
So I've often wondered, what happened to that story?
Yeah.
Because I don't have any, I had the last names of the people writing the letter and the last name of the person it came to, but I'd like to think that happened.
Well, the mere fact that he would write and that was a topic of discussion.
Yeah, that's all the letter was about.
Yeah,
It's
so
like 2 paragraphs, and the fact that he said that we would show him every attention if you would send him down.
So he must have thought that there was a common
I have a feeling they,
understanding that this might be a possibility, of course, I'm
and I
pretty
said her
sure.
name was Sally, I can't remember the wife's name, but the slave that was the wife of the man enslaved in Richmond, but, you know, they must have really loved her to be writing on her behalf.
Absolutely.
Was he writing for him to come visit, or was he writing for him to come stay with them?
Well, probably a prolonged stay, what I guess.
Stay, but not.
I don't think he was offering to buy, but I think he was like, you know, he could come down for a couple months. That's what I read into it.
Well, he may have had a trade, you know, like,
Yeah, because a lot of people, slaves that would be in Richmond like that, they would be highly skilled carpenters or wheelwrights or something like that that had some serious bricklayer and had some skills that were valuable to the owner of that person. Because apparently ones that had those high skills were in demand, and they were basically used as money making. Yeah, I'll rent you out to this person, and they're going to pay me this money. And usually the slave got a little bit of that money. Sometimes, yeah, and sometimes enough to be able to buy their freedom if they were
and that
really
he
good
got
and in demand.
other family members.
Right, and had somewhat an owner with a conscience.
Right.
That's the way I look at it.
Well, I want to thank you so much. This is just.
Yeah, this was so
I've never talked to one of these this long before.
Oh, it's so interesting. It was so
Well,
good.
you've never been in one before.
Yeah, just to me, as a genealogist, just watching these names go by, that's just been amazing. Not to mention the whole postal service
Yeah,
side of it.
the letter writing is a lost art.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the stories that.
But none of y'all start competing with me on eBay now.
No, no.
Oh, yeah,
They were
already
showing
got